Good evening, and welcome to our public forum featuring candidates for the legislative district of 14A and 14B. The Minnesota House of Representatives, a state representative's job is to enact laws for the state of Minnesota. Every representative is elected from a specific district. Representatives may work on laws that pertain to the whole state, parts of the state, or their own districts. Persons serving as representatives must be familiar with many public policy issues, ranging from healthcare, education, and agriculture to immigration, employment practices, and natural resources. The League of Women Voters of the St. Cloud area is sponsoring and moderating this forum. I am Karen Langshan, a member of the League, and I will be your moderator tonight. Judy Heater will be the timekeeper. Channel 181, the public access channel, will be carrying this live, as well as uptake.org, which is live streaming the forum online. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We believe an informed citizenry is the foundation of democracy, and we sponsor candidate forums to give voters a chance to hear candidates' views on the issues. The League does not support or oppose particular political parties or individual candidates, but does study and take positions on issues. We moderate candidate forums according to a standard protocol. The candidates have accepted the format in advance. This forum will end at 8:30, or when all questions have been answered. All questions come from you, the audience. So we have some ground rules for you. No campaign or partisan materials may be worn, displayed, or distributed in this room. Materials can be offered on a table provided outside. This is your notice. All cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices must be turned off. No one is permitted to photograph or record a forum except credentialed media representatives. I will recognize individuals who want to ask questions. Please come to the microphone here in turn and begin by giving your name and the city or town you live in. Questions must be brief. Lengthy statements will not be allowed, and only one-part questions, please. After everyone has had their turn, participants can ask another question. Questions must be related to specific issues the candidates would normally address as public officials in this particular office. Questions on unrelated topics or of a personal nature will not be allowed. All questions should be able to be answered by all candidates. A question may be addressed to a particular candidate first, but all candidates will be given a chance to answer that question. We ask you to remain quiet while candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear responses. All applause will be held until the forum is complete. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order by their district. The order will rotate for each question. Starting on my far right, I am pleased to introduce Tama Tice. On my near right, Dan Wolgamott. On my near left, Zach Dorholt. And far right left, Jim Knoblach. Candidates, you will each be allowed the following amounts of time. 1 minute for your opening statement about why you are running and your qualifications for this office. Up to 1.5 minutes to answer each question from the audience, and 1 minute for a closing statement at the end of the question and answer period. The timekeeper will hold up cards indicating the time remaining. 30 means you have 30 seconds left. Time means finish your sentence and stop. If you still have comments to make on a subject, please consider including them in your closing statement. If I consider a rebuttal in order at any time, I will invite the candidates to speak. I will begin by asking Tama Tice to give an opening statement. Tama.
My name is Tama Tice, and I'm the state representative 14A.
Oh, I'm sorry. You need to turn on your microphone right in the middle of...
Where it says push? My name is Tama Tice, and I'm the state representative for District 14A. And 14A is St. Augusta, Waite Park, and the west and south part of St. Cloud. Greg and I have been in the St. Cloud area for 34 years, which coincidentally is the same amount of time that we've been married. We have 2 sons, and both are out on their own. They're 32 and 29. We have owned Greggy Tice Construction / Remodeling for 29 years, but are phasing out of that, and now Greg is doing home inspections. I'm doing this because I really feel a need to serve, and I've been very active in the different legislative issues that have involved our industry, and have become very concerned about some of the things that I was seeing. So when the opportunity arose, when Steve Gottwalt decided to resign, I decided it was a perfect opportunity to step in and take a look at some of the things that were going on. I'm obviously very concerned about some of the things that are happening not only in the construction industry, but with small businesses and businesses combined. It has been a very rewarding experience. Coming in on a special election is a little bit different experience, but I have to say I was extremely welcomed by everyone and was offered some good suggestions and advice. So I really am appreciative to be here tonight, and I thank you.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, I want to thank the League for hosting this event tonight, and I want to thank everyone here for being part of the discussion. I'm Dan Walgamot, and I'm also running for state representative in District 14A. I live in St. Cloud with my wife, Nicole, and our daughter, Lily, who's a second grader at Oak Hill Elementary. My qualifications for the office: I'm a realtor. I have a real estate business with Century 21, and through that, I work with families from all economic backgrounds. I also am an assistant high school football coach, so I have experience working with kids in our community. And as a representative, I'll be able to give full representation to all parts of our community. Why I'm running, I believe a state representative is someone who gets out and makes an effort to listen. And that's why my volunteers and I have been out knocking since April. So if you live in 14A, there's a good chance we've been to your door. So as your representative, I'll always listen to you and be accessible to you. And I thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Zach.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us. My name is Zachary Dorholt, current state representative for Minnesota House District 14B, which is where you're sitting today. This is my first term. I'm a dad. I have 2 girls, one about to turn 1 and the other one about to turn 3. My full-time job, I'm a counselor at a local nonprofit mental health center where I work with adults who live with serious and persistent mental illness, things such as schizophrenia, bipolar, and PTSD. I got an undergrad and one of my masters at St. Cloud State. Before I went to grad school, I worked in the telecom industry for a little while with land use, zoning, and environmental regulation compliance for the placement of wireless telecommunication equipment. I got permits for stuff. And I'm also served as a treasurer and board member of the Central Minnesota Sustainability Project. So I've been involved in a wide variety of community efforts. I'm also part owner of a local restaurant. So I have everything from small business to nonprofit, and one of my primary reasons for running is because many of the people I work with do not have a direct voice to people in politics.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, thank you to the League and for everyone coming here. My name is Jim Knoblach, candidate for District 14B. I was born and raised in the north side of St. Cloud, went to Madison, North Apollo, went on to get a business degree at St. John's and later an MBA and a master's in American government. I've been real active in the volunteer community here in St. Cloud for quite a few years. My wife Janet and I have a fundraiser for the Salvation Army at our home every fall. We had the 6th one this year. I've been on the Salvation Army board for many years, been on a wide variety of other nonprofits as well, Boy Scouts, Rotary, been a big brother with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I'm running to give back to our community. I was in the legislature, as some know, some years ago. I got out when my kids were becoming teenagers and I decided not to run again. But when I see what's happened the last few years, I've been disappointed with our legislature. I see them spending $90 million on a new legislative office building that we don't need. I see them not spending money in transportation and other areas that we should. And I look forward to talking more about these issues in this forum.
Thank you. All right, audience members, it's up to you. If you will come to the microphone and ask your question. And I would remind you that when I recognize you, identify yourself and the name of your city or town. And thank you all for lining up. I appreciate that. All right, first question, please.
My name is Jerry Ralph. I'm a resident of St. Cloud, Minnesota. The current majority has burdened Minnesota with more than $2 billion in tax increases, adding to an already oversized government. I would ask the candidates what they would propose to do to slow down and reduce the size of government. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with Dan.
Well, thank you for that question, Jerry. And I've been out door knocking and hearing a lot of complaints about taxes, of course. And one tax in particular that I have a passion for lowering is property taxes. As a realtor, that's a tax that I deal with every day with my clients. And I would have supported the work done by the legislature in which we saw a 5% decrease in property taxes throughout the state of Minnesota. It's a particular issue of concern for seniors in our community who are living in a fixed income. Just recently, the Social Security checks came out, and they did increase by 1.7%. But in years past, we've been seeing double-digit increases in property taxes. So as our representative, I will make sure to continue the work that the legislature has done to lowering property taxes and reducing that burden on homeowners.
Thank you. Zach.
I have a different look at government. I don't see it as a far-off entity. I believe that everybody in this room is part of the government. And every time we phrase that word government as something negative, it's counterproductive, in my opinion, to the well-being of our democracy. Minnesota has one of the most efficient governments in the country. And the money we raised wasn't to grow government. It was to make up for the disinvestment in things such as healthcare and education over the past decade. So, and I can go to, I do know there are more, we have more than our fair share of regulatory burdens. As part owner of a small restaurant, I could list them off for a while. And that is also part of why I'm there. It's the little things that add up. And I do believe it's the little things, not the big things that are annoying us, but the increase in paperwork, the increase in the time we have to put in to proving things to certain agencies. So if we can decrease the amount of time we spend on the work we do with our small businesses in relation to the government, I believe that's the way we need to move forward.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, firstly, if you look at the U.S. Census Bureau, they'll tell you that we are, on a per capita basis here in Minnesota, the 4th highest tax state in the country. Now, other states are providing all sorts of services for less than we are. I guess I wouldn't say that we are a wildly efficient state in delivering government services. There are many great things about Minnesota. I'm not running to burn down the Capitol or anything like that. I want to make the government run better. But we are a very highly taxed state, and it's not like we have been in a situation where we have had extremely low taxes in the last 5 years during the time that Mr. Dorholt was talking. Yes, taxes have just gone up a bunch, but we've been a high tax state all along. I guess I'm concerned if you look at the trends that, the economy is growing maybe 2% a year. We're increasing spending at a rate of 6% a year and have for each of the last 2 years. It's simply unsustainable. And so I think we need to work to slow the growth of government and look for programs that we can maybe find duplication in and find efficiencies in to better have our government work for us.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. I did not support the tax increases that were passed in the last 2 years, and what I believe we need to do is better prioritize where we're spending the money. And we need to look at our constituents and say, we need to live within our means just like everyone else does, whether it be a small business, a family, no matter what it is. We just have to do a better job of prioritizing and seeing where this money really needs to go.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Charlotte Fisher, and I live in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And my question is, we give billions of dollars every year to the HMOs to care for our low-income population in Minnesota. And my question is, there's no transparency. We have no accountability from the HMOs as to how they are spending their money. So the question is, do you believe that because it's our taxpayer money, taxpayers should be able to find out where these billions of dollars that HMOs are given are spending? Presently, today, it is not available.
Thank you. We'll start with Zach.
Thank you for that question. And anytime we are giving money, public tax dollars somewhere, it should be transparent no matter where it goes. And many members of the HMO community and others we're pretty adamant that we can't show you because that'd be counterproductive. Well, that always has sounded fishy to me, and I think more transparency, the better. Just the suspicion alone of what they're doing creates too much controversy.
Thank you. Jim.
Just on the ground rules, do I have 1 minute or 2 minutes here? I forget.
1.5.
1.5. Okay, thank you. Well, I think that's a very good question, Shar, and I really think we should have a lot more transparency. I've been really disappointed in the billions of dollars that are being doled out to these nonprofits, and yes, we don't really know if we're getting a good value or not. Now, we have to be careful. We can't have complete transparency because I don't think we would be able to comply with the federal HIPAA law if we got a download from them of all the money they spent on everyone in this room for every medical procedure they had. Obviously, we can't do that. We've got to protect people's privacy. But within those restrictions of protecting people's privacy, yes, I would be for much more transparency so that we know how we are spending our taxpayer dollars and so that we know that we can get and perhaps improve upon the value that we're getting for those dollars.
Thank you. Tama.
We definitely need to be transparent where we can. As Jim said, there are different laws and such that prevent total transparency. But anytime we're using the taxpayers' money, we absolutely need to make sure that they know where it's going and they agree that it's the best value and use of their money.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Dan.
Thank you. Well, Charlotte, thank you for that question, and I absolutely agree. We need more transparency when it comes to that. It's your money. You should know where it's being spent. So I agree that we need to have a balance and be transparent when it's appropriate and compliant with law, of course. But absolutely, I would agree that we need more transparency.
Thank you. Now, next question.
I'm Jane Conrad from Richmond, Minnesota. And my question is, Shortly after being sworn in, Governor Scott Walker signed into law a bill that stripped public sector employees, like teachers, of their collective bargaining rights. Since then, Wisconsin schools have fallen to 28 in the nation, while Minnesota's has risen to the top 10. If a similar bill was presented in the legislature, how would you vote and why?
Thank you. Jim.
You know, I'm not familiar with all the details of that bill. I think you're talking about like a right-to-work type law, correct? You know, and I guess I would tell you that in the first place, there's no right-to-work legislation that's going to pass down at the legislature in the next couple years anyway. It's kind of an academic question because of the fact that the Senate, which is not up for election, is going to stay Democratic. But I don't know all the details of that particular bill. I will say that on the right-to-work side, I'm a little bit conflicted because I'm aware of both sides of the argument. On one side, there are employees that say, gee, I don't agree with what my union is doing, and I don't think that I should have these union dues forcibly taken out of my check. On the other hand, I'm aware of what economists call the free rider problem, where people can have the union do all the negotiating for them, and if they can get out of it, then they get something for free. I guess my inclination would be, instead of going that route, to look and see what the fair percentage is of money that is going for representation versus political activity on the union dues that someone has, and make a fair representation of that so people, when they do fair share, could have the right amount withheld from their check.
Thank you. Tama.
I agree in that I'm not hearing anything in the Minnesota legislature that will even come up. And I think before I would say that I would do one or the other, I think this is one of the great opportunities that we have, that we can say we need to hear what we're hearing from our constituents. I don't know all the details, and I would need to hear from folks what they were feeling. Absolutely. Again, I would be conflicted. I could go either way on that one, but I would really need to hear a lot of details and also hear a lot of input from folks to see where we would go on that one.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question. And I've gotten to volunteer in Lily's classroom over the years, and so I see how important it is that we have good teachers and the lessons that teachers instill in our children, from reading, writing, and arithmetic to also, self-discipline and technology skills. Our teachers are a very important part of our community. So as our representative, if a similar bill came to the floor and I had the opportunity to vote on it, I would stand with our teachers, I would stand with working families in our community, and I would easily vote against it.
Thank you. Zach.
I've had conversations with many students here at St. Cloud State University. As you may know, used to be a normal school for teachers. So we have a really excellent education program. And a small little trend we have, and is pretty noticeable after visiting with many students, is people from Wisconsin coming here to get their degree, and you ask them, when are you going to go back home? Where are you going to go back home to teach? And many of them will say, why not in Wisconsin? People fought extremely hard for the right to organize and for the rights that our neighboring governor took away. And I think that was more than wrong. I think it was mean. And there's no way I would ever support such legislation that takes workers' rights away. I think it's simply mean.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Emily Esch, St. Cloud. When I was offered a job in central Minnesota, one of the selling points was there was going to be a rail line built from the Twin Cities to St. Cloud. That was 9 years ago. And we still don't have the rail line extended to St. Cloud. So I'm wondering whether you support extending the line and what you might do to make it happen.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. That's something that's really been top of mind lately, especially with all the issues with the railroad. Well, I think one of the biggest, I don't want to say mistakes, but I don't know what other word to use at the moment, is that it didn't come to St. Cloud immediately. I think waiting was a mistake on that part. They should have planned and tried to get it here right away. Right now with the railroad situation and the rail lines, I'm really not seeing much movement on that. I mean, it's not even anything that we're talking about at the moment. It's basically how to get more cars free, hauling what's already there. I think about the only way we could do it, if it stays like this, is to build another set of rails that we could use for North Star, and possibly even get more movement going back and forth from the cities. Sometimes it's not as convenient to only go in the morning and the evening. It would be nice to have some that went different times of the day. But with the current situation, I'm not seeing that there's going to be much more. There's going to be more movement on getting it here right now. We have to take care of the other situation first and try to free some lines up and cars.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question, Emily. And I'm a proud supporter of bringing the North Star to St. Cloud. I've talked to a lot of working families who live here in our community, but commute down to the Twin Cities for work on a daily basis. And the North Star is so important to them that they are willing to drive down to Big Lake. But we really need to get it up here to St. Cloud and make that a priority legislatively. I've talked to members of the business community who agree that it will be a smart investment for businesses, help with reducing congestion on I-94. So there are members of the business community who want to make it a priority to bring the North Star to St. Cloud. It's working great, but it doesn't make any sense to stop it in Big Lake. And my in-laws are here, and they live in Big Lake, and they agree that we need to bring it to St. Cloud, to the regional center of our state here. So I would definitely make it a legislative priority to bring the North Star to St. Cloud. Thank you.
Zach.
Many decades ago, when the railroads ruled, and it's starting to feel like they are again, if you were a member of Congress and you didn't get that rail to come through your town, they kicked you out. Your town suffered, and that's where you see the ghost towns, especially out west. The rail went a different way. And we had this opportunity to bring it to St. Cloud. It was supposed to come here, and it didn't. And I believe it didn't come here because it wasn't politically expedient for the people who were in power at that time. And once again, decades ago, they call it a 100-year decision. And to bring it here now is going to take a very strong cooperation with both state and federal government, and to keep our eyes focused on multimodal transportation means. Younger people are choosing not to drive these days, and it isn't because possibly they can't afford a car because of their student loan payments, but it's because they prefer to spend more time with people rather than their car. I commuted to Maple Grove and Bloomington 2 or 3 days a week, and it sucked the life out of me, and I'd love to have that North Star come here. The Chamber of Commerce supports it. It could have been here, but people made some poor decisions that ended that 20 miles short of where it was supposed to come to.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, I supported the North Star Corridor when I was in office before. I was one of relatively few Republicans to do so. But the history on it is the people that made the poor decisions were out in Washington, D.C. They did a study, and they said there is not enough traffic to support it if it comes to St. Cloud. Now, I disagree with that. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me to have it terminate in Big Lake. It should come to St. Cloud. But the federal government was providing much of the money for this, and that was what their study said, and that's what they said, and that is the main reason we don't have it here today. Having said that, I do support it, but there are two things I think we need to be aware of with it. First of all, I think everyone knows that there were lots of scheduling problems and traffic difficulties with it this last winter that were compounded probably by the weather, but also by all the additional traffic on that line. And so I think if we're going to get it up here, we need to find a solution to all this traffic that is on that rail line, whether it's getting the oil trains off of there by building pipelines, or whether it's building additional track, or somehow getting some more capacity so that if it does come here, it is actually on schedule and something people will want to use. Secondly, when I was there, it was a state-funded project where the state was paying the operating costs, and since I left, it has become a project where the property taxpayers in the counties that it go through pay the operating costs. And I oppose that idea and think we should go back to it being state-funded.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is David Kelly. I'm a resident of St. Cloud, and I believe that what is best for Minnesota is what's best for Minnesota children. I'd love to know whether you agree. My question is, what can we as the state of Minnesota do best for our children?
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question, David, and this is probably the issue I'm most passionate about as a dad. What is a state that we can do best for our children is investing in education, both in expanding early childhood education opportunities, as well as investing in our K through 12 schools. Our current representative voted against scholarships for early childhood education. I would have voted differently than that. And as our representative, I'll work hard to expand early childhood education opportunities by making it more affordable for families and working towards universal voluntary preschool at some point. So what we can do is simple. Invest in expanding early childhood education opportunities, and make sure that we're supporting our teachers and our other people working in our schools so that our kids can have a world-class education here in Minnesota.
Thank you. Zach.
We talk about funding a lot, and I want to point out that per pupil funding, despite the fact we made a close to 7% increase in the 2015 biennium there, still will be here in the St. Cloud area about 1,000 less than it was in 2003 per pupil. And we just put a Band-Aid on the bleeding that happened over the past decade. We had to pay off a credit card owed to our schools of over $2 billion. So we just started playing catch up. We still have a lot of catch up to do. And we also need to work towards, in my opinion, the changing needs of our diverse communities and just how fast the times move. Taking a broader look of how this old factory model of first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade used to work, and we know it doesn't fit the times. Personally, I'd like to see mental health professionals in every school so that teachers can teach and the kids need help, get the help they need. And also, that we just started with the scholarships for pre-K, and I too support hopefully universal, optional pre-K classes so that everybody has an opportunity to develop their brains when they are so malleable between 0 and 5.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, sir, that is a really broad question. I'm not sure if you were looking for an education answer or what you were looking for, because I could talk about several different aspects of children. I mean, one thing I think that's really critical is protecting our children. And I look at the Dean case that happened up in Pope County, where you had this little 4-year-old boy that people should have consistently picked up was being abused, and yet because of a failure of the state, it wasn't picked up, and the little boy finally died. And the state doesn't have a much bigger responsibility than public safety and taking care of the lives of children who can't take care of themselves in a case like this. And so, that's certainly one thing that I would say the state really needs to take a look at this. There was, I guess, a law passed that maybe contributed slightly to this in the last few years that everyone kind of, I think, now feels needs to be revisited. But certainly the whole, the foster care system, the child protection system needs to be looked at in the state. But education obviously is a critical need as well. When I left in 2006, we had an increase in per pupil funding here for 742 every single year that I was in, and when I left we had a $2 billion state surplus. Now I know things slipped. I with the Great Recession since that time. I guess I can't answer for all the decisions that were made during that time, but I certainly value education, think that we are not treated fairly here with all the challenges we have compared to the Twin Cities, and one thing I would like to do is to have more fairness in our funding.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. Minnesota's always been a front runner, and we've been really known for our education. So when the omnibus bill that included the vouchers and such came about, I could not vote for it because it also lowered standards for our graduates. There was a comment on the floor that now we'll have more graduates. It wasn't that their education would be better, it was that we would have more graduates. I'm on the higher education committee, and what I hear from our colleges, our schools, is that the students graduating, some of them aren't even meeting reading and math standards. There was no way I could vote to lower the standards for graduation. That just doesn't seem right to me. And when I look at what we want for our children, we want a good education. We want them to be empowered. We want them to believe that they can do anything. And I think when we expect more of them, that happens. I could not support something like that. I don't think it does Minnesota well. Knowing that when you get educated in Minnesota, you're valuable. And that also goes with this testing for teachers. There was something in there too to make that a little bit easier. And I don't agree with that. I really don't. And so, yes, I didn't vote for the education bill. I didn't think it did St. Cloud justice. We do have a lot of diversity. We have a lot of issues. I would rather see us have more control in the schools. Because of the diversity, I would like us to take some of the monies that are said to go, they need to go here or there, and have them used where they're really needed for our students.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Scheibel, and I live here in St. Cloud. We recently heard a national figure state that businesses and corporations do not create jobs. What do you think creates jobs, and what will you do to keep growing good-paying jobs?
Thank you. Zach.
Well, demand creates jobs. If you want to talk about consumer products, if we need toothpaste, we're going to have competition. Businesses don't create toothpaste. People did. This is about people. And if we're going to create jobs, we look to where the demand for those jobs and where the need is. And businesses are one of the tools. Okay, part owner of a restaurant here, and we knew there was a demand for a certain type of food and certain type of beverages. And the demand is what allowed our business to succeed. Okay? We had an idea, but it wasn't just us. We couldn't have our customers without the demand for that product. And when it comes to creating jobs here, we've actually, past couple of years, we've done a really good job with the Job Skills Partnership. You hear a lot about high-tech manufacturing, where the skills gap is. We need people in high-tech manufacturing. What we've done here is we've partnered businesses with St. Cloud Tech and Community College, along with St. Cloud State University, and our local businesses have done a great job because of that. Just recently, we're going to have 84 jobs being created with some local businesses, including Talent Industries, another one with NetGain. So partnering with your local education foundation is going to be key to creating real jobs and careers.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, this could get to be a real esoteric economics debate. You know, I guess I would, without getting into Keynesianism, all kinds of stuff like that, I guess I'd say that actually demand doesn't create jobs, because where does demand come from? It comes from people that have money to demand something. You're not going to have any demand if you don't have people who have good jobs, who have the resources to create the demand. And so I think, you know, really what you come down to is productivity and people's ability to make an income, to have a job, to get paid, is what then generates more job, more wealth, more income for an area. And that can come in many forms. I mean, education is something that creates productivity, helps people get better jobs, helps people make more money. We've been failing at a lot of that in this state. I mean, we've got the largest achievement gap in the country between whites and minorities. There have to be some real changes in that way. We have a very big regulatory state here where we have way too much paperwork. We require way too many hoops for people to jump through sometimes to create jobs. We need to, while still preserving the environment and the other standards that we have, figure out a way to entice businesses to expand here, entice businesses to move here, instead of creating incentives for them to leave like we have to a large extent.
Thank you. Tama.
Of course, as a small business owner and person, I would say that I would have a hard time saying that small businesses don't create jobs. And yes, it does come from demand, but it also comes from many different things. Minnesota has, one of the reasons I got involved with politics and being attentive to what was happening legislatively was because it was getting to be so burdensome. There was so much money added to our overhead costs, which sometimes, eats up what you could have an employee make. I definitely think that small businesses have a large part in jobs. If we're doing well and we're creating and having the capacity to be outside the box in some situations and try some wonderful things out, that's where your jobs are created. It comes from folks who are just innovative, who have that wonderful entrepreneurial spirit, and you let them grow, and you don't keep holding them back. I would be hard pressed to say that. I just totally agree with it. I disagree with it. I just think small businesses have a wonderful hand in doing that, and the more we keep putting burdens on them, whether it be with regulations or with adding to their overhead, we're just really holding that back.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question, and I disagree with what it says. I believe small businesses have a big part in creating jobs. There are many examples of that here in our community. Through my real estate business, I'm a proud member of our local area chamber of commerce, and so every week I get to chat with business owners and know that the role that they play in creating jobs and supporting our economy. So small businesses do create jobs, and as a state, I think there are a lot of things we can do to support small businesses and make sure that they do have the resources and the workforce needed. Like Jim mentioned, education is an important part of that. If we want to be economically competitive, we've got to make sure that we have a highly skilled, well-educated workforce. I think making sure that we have a good transportation system is also very important to that. That's a real problem I'm hearing from business owners and from families alike, is that right now in Minnesota, we've fallen behind on our transportation and infrastructure here. So that's why I would support a comprehensive transportation package that has a 21st century funding mechanism for our 21st century economic needs. So to answer your question, yes, small businesses here in our community, here in Minnesota, have a big time role in creating jobs. And as our state representative, I'll make sure that we're supporting them on a wide variety of levels.
Thank you. Next question.
Sue X, St. Cloud. Along the same lines of transportation, many people say we need to add a lot more money into our system. And the idea of toll roads has come up, and I'm wondering where you stand with that idea.
Thank you. All right, candidates, we're going to reverse order, starting with Jim and moving this way. Jim.
Well, I guess I believe, and Zach will have to comment on this, based on the debate we had on WJON last week, that this is a difference between Mr. Dorholt and I. I guess I really am not supportive of toll roads. I do think we need to get some more money into our system. all sorts of bipartisan studies have said that we're not spending nearly enough to even maintain the current transportation system of roads and bridges we have, much less expand it in different areas like, say, adding 3 lanes all the way up to St. Cloud for I-94 like I'd like to see. But I personally think that there are other ways, one of which would be bonding, another which would be reprioritizing some other spending for us to look at instead of toll roads. My experience with toll roads, having been down at the legislature, is everyone thinks toll roads is a great idea for someone else's area. But no one, of course, wants it for their own. And I think that we have a tradition in Minnesota of all sort of working together and chipping in together, be it through the gas tax or license tabs or whatever funding mechanisms we have to build and maintain our transportation infrastructure. And I think we should be looking at continuing that tradition.
Thank you. Zach.
The toll roads have come up as a drastic option for what we consider public-private partnerships if there was to be a construction of a brand new road. And it was just one option, which I actually worked to explore with our senator, Republican, John Peterson. We actually shared this bill in the House. And nobody wants toll roads, and just thinking about winters in Minnesota, I think it would simply be a hazard. I know nobody wants to think about toll roads in January here, especially the past 2 winters. I honestly don't know how they'd work. But it was part of the conversation to point out that we don't have the money to build new roads. And if we were to do that, what are some options? So that's where it comes from. Adding toll roads on existing lanes? Absolutely not. Never. I could never support anything like that. But we talked about it because of the seriousness of our transportation dilemma. This is nationwide. This is statewide. We've fallen behind, and this happened a long time ago. And we don't even have enough money to keep up with repairs. And this is a Minnesota problem. This is a problem in America. We've chosen to invest in things outside of where we live, and this is one of them.
Thank you. Dan.
As far as toll roads go, I agree that I think that would be a very drastic option. There's no question that it would be hazardous with our winters, as Zach said. But I do agree with Jim, and I agree with Zach, that we need to increase funding for our transportation system here. We have billions in backlog projects right now. We don't have enough money to keep up with our current roads and bridges. So we need a representative who's going to have the courage to put some revenues on the table. And so that's why I think we need to keep a lot of solutions on the table, and we need to come up with a 21st century transportation funding mechanism to meet our 21st century transportation needs. So I agree with Jim. I agree with Zach. I disagree with our current representative when it comes to bringing in new funding to meet our state's transportation needs.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of toll roads. Our son has a home in Florida, and so you find out really quickly that Florida loves toll roads, and quietly they're very burdensome. And it's a kind of interesting how folks actually find a way to not pay their tolls and just go through, and they know exactly how to play the system. So it doesn't take folks long to learn how to navigate around it and do some creative things. Not only that, the roads weren't necessarily the best roads there, which was kind of interesting. Since you're paying a toll, I think you would have expected better roads, and they were not. I do not see that as an option for us right now. I think we'd be better served in looking at our budget and prioritizing and saying this is a really big need. I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure Advisory Board here at the City of St. Cloud, and basically what we do is we look at some of the projects that have not been done in the past 6-7 years, the backlog that wasn't done because of recession and money's just not being there, and we're deciding, where are we best served. We did pass a referendum for that, and we're using that money and deciding where we're best served to do the repairs. And I think we truly need to look at making it the priority that it is. It has not been a priority for several years. We need to prioritize and make that a budget and bonding issue.
Thank you. Next question.
I'm Jerry McCarter from St. Cloud, and I'd like to continue the transportation discussion if my voice will hang out long enough. Our transportation budget has been severely lacking for the last 2 decades. How would you specifically pay for future road maintenance, replacement, and new construction? And if your answer includes spending cuts, please be specific as to which areas and costs you would cut. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach.
You probably can hear most people say leave all options on the table. And in order to be, this is a problem which we're going to need everybody to get their heads together and be creative and open to things we may not like, such as the gas tax. It never was calculated to go along with inflation. Our cars are getting better mileage. Some people are driving less. That revenue was something we counted on to keep our roads safe. And we can't count on that source anymore. It's too little. But we also know that raising the gas tax could be a burden on some people. So that's one thing we have to keep on the table. The other is thinking beyond just roads. However, we must prioritize safety first. And this allows, giving local entities options. Something we allowed counties to do was the wheelage tax, because we know that there are many county bridges across the state that are beyond their needs for repair. Providing places like the local option sales tax for the St. Cloud area, so we can utilize those funds to do something locally. All of this stuff needs to be part of the solution if we are going to be serious about transportation.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question, Jerry. And this is one of my top priorities, is a comprehensive transportation package to meet our 21st century needs. I agree that we need to keep all options on the table. One option is the gas tax. As Zach said, that does have diminished value as our cars become more and more fuel efficient. We do need to keep all options on the table here, because we've prioritized, we've reprioritized, but we're still too far behind. It's irresponsible to not put any solutions on the table for funding our 21st century transportation needs. As our representative, I'd be willing to put real solutions on the table to tackle this priority, but there's billions in backlogs just to keep up. We've got to have a realistic solution to tackle this priority and make sure that, as I've said, we're living up to our 21st century transportation needs, and that includes leaving all options on the table.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. Well, I'm not a super big fan of a gas tax. I do know that I've had folks in my office talking about the fact that we just need better roads. And if gas tax is how we get there, then fine. If I hear enough support for it, I would do it. But it would have to be made loud and clear that that money would definitely be used for roads and would not go anyplace else. Sometimes that has happened. Monies have been taken and used in other areas. So to say that I wouldn't support it wouldn't be accurate. I would definitely be willing to listen to see what's out there, who's willing to support it, and what are they willing to support. It was made very clear that folks who use the roads a lot are definitely willing to do what it takes to get roads in better conditions. But I do believe that our best source is to truly look at where we're spending our money and how much we're spending. And Jerry, there's so many different ways we probably could cut, and I don't know the perfect answer, but I do know that there are some suggestions out there about maybe using some monies from sales taxes on parts that go on cars because of the low mileage gas or cars and such, that not everybody's contributing to the gas tax. So there are some options out there. We're hearing some creative out of the box things, and I'm very excited to hear what some of those will be.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, I agree that this is a big problem, and there's no one silver bullet, and it's going to take a multifaceted approach. I think we need to start, first of all, one area is look at seeing how we can build what we're trying to build cheaper. The rate of inflation, the cost of building a road, if you go back the last 15, 20 years, has gone up vastly faster than the inflation rate. And so we need to do some of the hard work of looking at procurement reform, looking at how we can get more people, more companies to come in and make bids on building roads, see if there are superfluous regulations or paperwork that we can eliminate that would lower the cost of building roads. We need to look at this first and see what can we do to just make it more cheap to build a road, to lower our costs. Beyond that, I would say that most recent legislatures really had some mistakes in their priorities. I look at the Public Works bill, the bonding bill, for example. We had a $900 million bonding bill this last year. $35 million of it was spent on roads and bridges. Now, we spent $20 million on beautifying the Nicollet Mall. We spent $8.5 million on the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden. We spent $20 million on theaters. We should be spending hundreds of millions of dollars in that bonding bill on roads and bridges. And there are ways to substitute some of that money so that we can get gas tax money into the trunk highway fund to be able to be doing our trunk highway too. But finally, I would say, and I think I've been pretty public about this, that while it's not my preferred alternative, I'd leave the gas tax as another item to consider as part of items on the table.
Thank you. Next question.
Patrick Henry from Waite Park. What legislation, if any, would you sponsor to reduce economic inequality?
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you for the question, Patrick. This is something that's very personal to me. Through my church, I'm a volunteer overnight host coordinator for a program known as Church of the Week. And for those unfamiliar with the Church of the Week, it's a sheltering program for when here in our harsh winters, there's overflow at the homeless shelters. All the churches in the area got together and said, you know, we just cannot have people living on the streets in a polar vortex. We can't have that. So I volunteered through Church of the Week, and I know several people in our community who are currently experiencing homelessness. They're my friends. They're important people in our community. And so it would be a top-notch priority as our next representative to work to eliminate those inequalities. One thing that I would have supported is raising the minimum wage. I saw from several people who have been in Church of the Week were able to have work pay more because of the raise in the wage. So that's one thing that I would have done to support hardworking people who are living in poverty. We need to continue to make it a priority in the legislature that as a state, we're providing support, whether it's through supporting different organizations like the Place of Hope Ministries, which is the program that Church of the Week is run out of, making sure that we're doing what we can legislatively and in the community to alleviate poverty and inequality.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. I've been involved more with homeless veterans and doing things and looking at some of the issues there. And what we're finding are a lot of the same issues that everyone is facing as far as homelessness. I think we need to look at making so many of these things a priority, and we're not. And that's truly what I mean when we say we need to look at where we're spending our money and what do we really need to do. While we all say this is a great priority, I don't always think that happens. And so right now I'm really excited to be working with some folks as far as trying to figure out some things that we can introduce and have so that we can start addressing some of these issues. We need to be more vocal on it and say, you know, we really need to do what we say we're going to do as far as that goes. It isn't an easy fix, it isn't an easy solution, and I wish it was. But I think we need to really start a strong dialogue and make some real priorities and start really saying this is what we need to do and where it's most important. I'm really like I said, excited to be working with some of these issues, and hopefully we can find some solutions.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, as I mentioned before, I've been on the Salvation Army Board for many years. I just got through being their chair for the last year, and so the whole issue of homelessness and poverty is something that I certainly have great concerns about. I think there are, a lot of different strategies that we can look at. One, of course, is education. As I mentioned, we have the biggest achievement gap in the country. We have a lot of parents who I think would really like to be able to do more with their children and just simply can't afford to. And one thing I'd like to do is greatly expand the tax credit program that exists right now for children or in both public and private schools. So it would be easier for kids that were in public schools to be able to participate in extracurricular activities by having some of those fees paid for. I have opportunities for kids in private schools so that if a parent wanted to have their child there, they'd be able to more easily afford a private school. I think we also need to do things to create a better job environment. I talked about regulatory reform earlier. In Cold Spring, we're seeing the possibility of a major employer being shut down because of some regulations about a supposed trout stream that's there. Up in northern Minnesota, these companies that are proposing to build mines have been waiting for something like 10 years for an answer from our state. And whether the answer is no or yes, we need to, while protecting our environment, create a regulatory environment that is friendlier to businesses and gets them answers more quickly so they can create jobs.
Thank you. Zach.
I think we strayed away from the original question, which was equality. Part of those founding documents, all men are created equal, and I think the folks who wrote that also meant to say that all people are created equal. You and I are 99.9% the same, if you really break it down scientifically, yet we still have things that allow us to focus on that 0.1% that makes us different, whether it's race, gender, sexual orientation, or identification. And what's happened is we stopped funding the watchdogs for this. One is that, with the human rights offices throughout the state. And sometimes people think we beat that. Oh, we beat racism, we're all right now. But that's not true. It still happens every day. The Women's Economic Security Act was missing some very significant components. What passed was only what we could get the votes for. We still need to muster up the votes for real maternity leave for women so they can stay at home. The other one with K-12, we had just a small packet of early childhood scholarships. However, they're not getting to the kids whose parents are oppressed by poverty. And that is where this equality begins, is getting all these kids into education, not with tax credits, but with open doors that are funded, fully funded.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Gretchen Leeson, and I've been a lifelong resident of St. Cloud. I would like to ask you all, the original question I had has been answered, so I'm going to ask you a different question. I'm very concerned because we've had quite a few economic questions and concerns about the plight of many people, and it certainly is real. I think that the best way out of poverty is actually good jobs. Not just a job, but good jobs. And we have some great higher educational institutions here, so I would like to know what each of you would say would be your two top priorities that you might address if you were in the legislature to try to improve the job opportunities, and not just education, but also so that we can get people to have incentives to create jobs.
Thank you. Tama.
I think one way that we do that is we allow businesses, as I said before, to be more creative, to do a better job of generating income so they can use that to invest back in their businesses. One of the things we're also hearing from our business owners is that they aren't finding qualified workers. But yet on the other hand, we also see where we've got a group that's underemployed. So I'm not really sure where we're disconnecting on that part, and it's an interesting dialogue on that. What I think we need to do truly is let our businesses be the creative people that they can be. And once you get that generated, you work hand in hand with your colleges to get the training that you need, which grows them and gets them a better able to serve the community. That dialogue is amazing. But what I think you also do is you allow for more employment, and you get a lot more people involved with growing that business. And if there's a way that they can have some type of investment, like you said, incentives and such, but I think basically, to me, it always comes down to regulation. When I'm allowed to be more creative, and I use that word all the time, but I don't know what else to say. But when you let companies be their wonderful creative self, I think that all just comes forward naturally.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, I've been a small business owner for over 25 years in a variety of businesses. A lot in the real estate business where I am right now, but I also owned a data processing and direct mail company here in town for a number of years. Worked in the medical device industry for a number of years, worked in the technology industry. So I think I have a good feel for business and what it takes to create jobs, what it takes to create good jobs. There's a lot of things a person could talk about with that question, Gretchen, but I guess I would highlight two things. First of all, the overall business climate. A recent survey showed that we were last in the upper Midwest here in Minnesota in new businesses being created. And that is because a lot of businesses have looked at Minnesota and said, with what's gone on with the tax climate here, with what's gone on in the regulatory climate, Minnesota's not a place that someone wants to open a new business. We are seeing a lot of disruption. I mean, the company that was once my largest customer, Quad Graphics, is now closed. 200 some good jobs out of existence. We need to be able to attract people to open businesses and keep their businesses open, keep Minnesota a good place to do business. And secondly, I'd mentioned what was talked about before, transportation. I mean, transportation is a government job. A good transportation system creates productivity. Building and renovating roads and bridges would also create good jobs. That's a key component as well.
Thank you. Zach.
We mentioned jobs, and the jobs that are out there that pay well require a good education, and that starts early on. And I don't know where some of these awkward statistics come out of us being bad for business when Forbes magazine rated us sixth in the country, which is an improvement from 2013. St. Cloud and Rochester moved into the top 25 out of regional centers in the country. Part of this reason is because we chose to bring, I dare say, government and businesses together. St. Cloud State University, St. Cloud Technical and Community College. Through the Job Skills Partnership Program, we dialed in on where the good jobs are needed, mostly high-tech manufacturing and other things, and we helped bring educated students into these businesses. So it was a partnership. It's a partnership between our educational institutions and the businesses with a focus on where good, not just good jobs, but careers are going to be. And we're actually doing a really good job here in Minnesota right now.
Thank you. Dan.
I also believe that to be economically competitive, to have a good climate for businesses, starts with a good education. Good jobs deserve good educated workers. And I would also support things such as the Job Skills Partnership, where we're building those relationships between educational facilities and businesses that best serves our businesses, that best serves our students. We want to make sure that we have an economy where when we're attracting students, with our world-class education system, we can keep that talent, we can keep that innovation, we can keep that creativity. I agree with Representative Knoblach. Transportation is a key part of that as well. I've talked to so many business owners that are very concerned about the slowdown in commerce on I-94 and other places, so it all ties back into that as well. So we need to make sure that we're providing for a good economic, competitive tax climate. We need to make sure that we're making those, strengthening our education system, and we need to make sure that we're providing businesses with a good 21st century transportation system.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name is Heidi Larson. I'm from St. Cloud, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters. And Karen, you're doing a great job moderating. My question follows up on what Zach already mentioned about WESA a little bit, the Women Economic Security Act that was passed on Mother's Day, which works well because it's about women. It gave women maternity leave up to 12 weeks. However, to be a true state that supports family values, would any of you support a bill that would expand WESA to be a paid leave, since women make up a large portion of our low-income families? I'd like you to answer that, and why or why not you wouldn't or would support this.
Thank you. Jim.
First, I will say I was puzzled by a statement that Zach made earlier about how, well, they just didn't have the votes to do what they wanted on the Women's Economic Security Act. And I mean, the House is held by the Democrats, the Senate's held by the Democrats, we've got a Democratic governor. I guess I am a little bit confused about how there couldn't be the votes for whatever people wanted to do. But in regard to your question, ma'am, I guess I would say I think that's something that we should leave up to the private employers or to the public employer if they want to offer that as a benefit to whatever the employer status is. There are different situations for different employers, and I don't think we should have a broad mandate that applies to every single business in the state, large, small, government, for-profit, nonprofit. I think that we shouldn't have that sort of a broad mandate.
Thank you. Zach.
That was one of the bills that didn't make it into WESA, which the Women's Economic Security Act, of which I was a co-author of. And it is and will be an uphill battle because, you know, businesses, both public and private, they're going to look at first, how much money is that going to cost right now? And many of us know in other developed nations, women and families get up to a year paid off time. And that would be a dream goal for sure. And so often parents are criticized for not spending enough time with their kids. Most of the time it's because they have to work. And here in St. Cloud, many of them have to work 2 or 3 part-time jobs. So they don't even have that option. So that's something we do need to work towards. It will be difficult. I'm honest about that. But when we start thinking long term and look at the benefits of other places that do this and how well their families function compared to those who aren't allowed this opportunity, we're missing out.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, as a husband and as a father of a second-grade girl, I am definitely know the importance of women and the importance of families. And I know how hard my wife works day in and day out to not only do a phenomenal effort with her job, but also to put forth a phenomenal effort as a mother in raising our child. So as our representative, I would support enhanced paid leave so that working moms can get that support and be able to keep their jobs. I would definitely work towards creating a workplace where women can get equal pay for equal work. And I also want to work to expand job opportunities for women in high pay and high demand fields. This is important for my family. It's important for a lot of the families in our community. This is something that's been coming up at the doors a lot over the past few months. Working women are a very important part of our economy, and as our representative, I'll make sure that they get full support moving forward.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. As a mother, I realized the importance of being home, and when our sons were born, I worked part-time after our oldest was born, and I stayed home with the second one. And so I definitely realized the importance of having that time. But I also know as a business owner that sometimes you just can't afford to do these things. And I think if we're going to do that, then we need to look at some of the other burdens we're placing on businesses so that their overheads would allow that conversation. But I don't feel like that's happening right now. We're hearing about some of the insurance costs and how that's going up for businesses. And I'm just not seeing the possibility right now with some of the other things that we've pushed on. But as a woman, yes, I definitely see the value to that. I enjoyed it. I love the years that I was home with the boys. And if it could have been, have a longer paid leave, that would have been fantastic. But as a business owner, I can tell you, you have to pick and choose what you're going to do as far as what benefits you can do. And at this moment, I just look at what some of the things we've passed to add on to overheads for businesses. I just don't think it's a possibility. Insurance has been a really big issue for them right now, as well as some of the other taxes and things that came. I wish we could find a better way to do it, but right now I think with the way the climate is, I can't see it happening.
Thank you. We've only got about 5 minutes left for questions, so I would ask you to ask a question on a different topic than we've heard.
Okay, I'm Marley Keller. I live in St. Cloud. I've been active politically since 1961, and I find the current campaigning really wearying. That I had 19 pieces of literature from the two people who are running for the legislature in my district. And I know that name recognition is important, but some of the literature is distorted in terms of people's records, and the photographs, are pretty horrible from the opponent. Anyway, how, in the time that it takes for people once they get elected to continue to raise all these funds, and the energy. Anyway, how would you bring about a better way of campaigning and condensing? Yeah, I have one last thing to say, is you cannot force people to pay attention.
So you want to know what ideas they have for better campaigning.
Thanks.
All right. Zach.
2 years ago, this was the most expensive House race in Minnesota history. And when I saw that, it kind of made me want to throw up. We just found out the other day that over $600,000 in outside money is being spent on this specific House race. House members are paid $30,000 a year. There are congressional races that don't cost $600,000. And that doesn't include the money out of our campaigns. I chose to abide by our campaign finance limits because I believe that money does not deserve the place it has in politics today. Unfortunately, we are faced with two awful Supreme Court decisions, and I would say that the Citizens United decision might be one of the worst decisions made in recent history, another 5-4. We had several pieces of legislation ready to go as far as campaign finance, and we looked at that Supreme Court decision, and some of these were authored by Joe Atkins and Representative Ryan Winkler, and we knew right off the bat they would have been unconstitutional. So I support an amendment that would get rid of Citizens United.
Thank you. Dan.
Well, thank you for that question. I think we're all sick of all the different mailers that are going out, and I don't believe that the campaigns should be about who's got the most money, who's got the most negative attack ads. I think that our campaigns should be about who's going to go out and door knock the most, who's going to go out and reach out to people and listen to them, and instead of doing a bunch of negative, nasty mailers, who's going to work with people in our community and finding good, positive solutions. I think there are some good things that the legislature has done on this in recent years. The political contribution refund program is something I very strongly support. For those of you not familiar with the PCR, as it's known, it's where if you're an individual, you can give up to $50. If you're a married couple, you can give up to $100 per year and get that refunded back to you. And I'm a very big believer in that, and I've been very proud of the people that I've been able to draw into the political process who previously had been turned off by all of the big spending and all the negativity, but now are very proud to be able to make their voice heard and contribute through that PCR. So I'm a big supporter of that. I do believe that one thing we can do is make harsher the penalties for those who don't abide by the campaign finance limits. I don't think it should be about who has the most money. I think it should be about who's going to put those shoes to the pavement, who's going to put those fingers on the doorbells, and who is going to have great conversations about a positive direction for our community.
Thank you. Tama.
Thank you. I do have an issue with the negative pieces that go out, and sometimes as candidates we don't get an opportunity to see those or have any input on it. I tell people a lot that what you see from me will be who I am, but there are outside groups that will run things, mail things out that are not approved by us. We don't get a say in what they are. I do not choose to do a negative campaign. You won't see that from me. I wish that we could have a better say in how we're represented in the community. I'm not a negative person. I do not do that. You will not see that from me. And I'm really saddened to see that happen. The PCR program is a PCR. Did I say it right?
Yep, PCR.
PCR. Sorry. It's getting late. I do see value to it, yet I'm not really sure that that's the best use of our funds again, you know, to basically pay for campaigns through that way. It is a wonderful way to get more people willing to be a part of it, to do it, but I still have some concerns about where that goes. But I think my biggest issue is I want to be represented how I want to be represented, and it's very worrisome to me sometimes when I hear, and quite frankly, sometimes we don't even get to see the pieces, and people are making judgments about who we are based on what that is.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, I've also been dumbfounded at how much money has come into this race, but not completely, because 2 years ago we saw $350,000 spent on behalf of Mr. Dorholt, and I think it was $250,000, something like that, spent on behalf of Mr. Bachmann in that race, which was the most expensive race in the state. People should know, if you don't, that the vast majority of the mailers that you're seeing, and probably what you're hearing on the radio, is not paid for by either Zach or I. It's outside interest groups, outside political parties that actually, by law, we can't know what they're doing. We can't know in advance. We can't see their stuff. And it really is irritating to have, in some ways, your campaign taken away from you by people sending all this stuff into your district that you would never send yourself. But what to do about it is hard. You know, I would be happy to decide that we each would only spend a certain amount of money if we weren't going to have all this outside money come in. But I saw money from Hollywood and New York and elsewhere come in 2 years ago, and there's been that kind of money come in against me this year too, and I guess I felt that I needed to be able to respond because I saw Mr. Bachmann was not able to respond 2 years ago when he signed the subsidy limit and took the taxpayer money. I'd just throw out one idea that I think we should pursue, and that is to go back to the system we had until 1974 in this state, where you ran for office without a party designation, without a political party, like people in city councils do. I think that that would be a good thing for a number of reasons, including the negative campaigning.
Thank you. I'm sorry we've run out of time. We'll now have closing statements, and I would remind the candidates you have 1 minute. We'll start with Dan.
Well, I want to once again thank you all for being here and for being a part of the discussion. Again, my name is Dan Walgamot. I'm a dad with a passion for education. I'm a realtor with a passion for small businesses and for all the families in our community. And I'm an assistant high school football coach with a passion for mentoring people, mentoring young children, kids in our community. And I'm an active community volunteer. I'm running for state representative to bring a fresh perspective to our state government. I will always listen to you. I put my personal cell phone number is on my lit pieces out there. You can always feel free and give me a ring. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your input. I'm running to represent all of our community. I have the energy and I have the experience to tackle our community's priorities in the legislature. So if you live in District 14A, I'm asking for your vote to send me to St. Paul and be a stronger voice for our community.
Thank you. Tama.
I'm having a hard time with that tonight. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve now. And again, the reason I got involved with it is because as a business owner, I was very concerned what was going on. Greg and I have always been very active in the community, I guess I started just volunteering in the kids' classrooms, and it just kept stepping up from that, whether it being volunteering in church, and it eventually led to being on boards on the Central Minnesota Builders Association. I'm a past president. I've been with the Chamber of Commerce for a long time. Done some things in that organization. I've been on Quiet Oaks Board, Good Shepherd Community Foundation Board, and served as president of Birthline for 2 years. My work has always been in the community, and at my doors, I've offered people to come down all the time to see me and come and visit or give me a call. One of the greatest pleasures is to be home in the district and being able to visit with folks to see what's really going on and hearing what's on their minds. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, thank you again for the League for sponsoring this, and thank all of you for coming, and for those who are otherwise listening or watching this. The St. Cloud area is very special for me. I was born and raised here. I came back here. I've given many thousands of hours, I'm sure, to volunteering for all sorts of different organizations to try to make this into a better community. And I've worked with Democrats, independents, Republicans, people who don't have any political party. When I was in the legislature before, I was known as someone who could work across the aisle, and I think that we need more of that down there. I was the chair of the bonding committee for 4 years, where you actually need to have 60% of the votes to pass the bill. There aren't 60% of the party in any one party down there. I had to reach across the aisle, and I'd like to use the skills that I developed then, the experience that I developed then, and the seniority that would be restored to me if I was elected to do good things for our area again. I appreciate the opportunity that all these people, all of you have given me, and people, thousands of you that I've knocked on your doors have given me to talk to you, and my door will always be open. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach.
Once again, thank you for having us. My name is Zach Dorholt. I was endorsed by the St. Cloud Times because we need a unique voice for a unique district. On one hand, I work with people who live with serious and persistent mental illness, some of whom have come right out from living under the bridge. I see the needs they have, and I see the frustrations and inefficiencies in the healthcare system. On the other hand, I'm part owner of a small business, a restaurant, that #1 industry to fail right off the bat. I was endorsed by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association because for the first time in nearly a decade, we finally chose to invest in Minnesota. And those investments were just a Band-Aid on the bleeding that we experienced due to poor economic times and poor political judgment. We have a lot of progress yet to make. And I hope you recognize the folks who have stepped up to support me, and I'd be honored to have your vote to continue working hard for you in St. Paul.
Thank you. Once again, the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. The sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the sponsors, any candidates. Thank you, audience members. You were just great tonight. Thank you to each of the candidates for running for Legislative District 14A and B, and for participating in this forum. Thank you to the City of St. Cloud for hosting this forum in the room. Thank you to Channel 181 for broadcasting. They will rebroadcast this on November 1st at 7 p.m. Thank you also to the Uptake for live streaming this forum. Additional information about the election and voting is available from the League of Women Voters on the table at the rear of the room. Information from the candidates is available outside the room. So now it's your turn. I hope you will continue to become informed about the candidates and the issues. Let your voice be heard on November 4th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you, candidates. Wonderful job tonight.